Now, in today's class, we are going to discuss about the French Revolution. Understand, UPSC in its mains 2025 has already asked the question, okay, and it is said, what is the contemporary relevance of French Revolution in the world scenario today? Second thing I want to bring to light is that on 10th of September 2025, right, we have seen in news there is this movement, block everything movement. Okay, now the common man over here is protesting about against the new French government. Why? Because understand that social security schemes like pensions and pensions, right, dispersal of subsidies, these are very core to common man. And what this new government is doing, it is cutting the funding, economic funding, it is cutting in the new budget for the common man. This news you can follow up. Now, understand, at that point of time, we have already discussed that the world was moving from feudalism, dark ages, to over-centralization of power. Okay, so what happened in France, we see coming up of Bourbon Dynasty. We'll see the causes of French Revolution. Coming up of Bourbon Dynasty under we'll study Louis XIV, 15 and 16. We'll see that how these ruler, they become despot and they try to control the whole authority. In fact, they believe that they have this divinity or they are answerable only to God. Now this, because later what happens, these people don't, these kings don't look for the welfare of the common man, right? This becomes one of the cause of French Revolution. We'll see in detail. Social reason. It was that the whole society was very rigidly divided into three layers. The first estate, the second estate, and the third estate. Third estate is the common man. Again, he is burdened with paying a lot of taxes, right? So he will definitely going to revolt. Economic reasons. We have already discussed about the 7 years of war that were happening between France and Britain, right? And we saw that both the nations were in this race to expand their imperialistic interest and they wanted to capture more and more colonies, right? Apart from this, in very brief, we'll see impact of the French philosophers. Montesquieu, we have already discussed that he talked about the separation of power. Rousseau, he discusses about the consent or the general will of the people, popular sovereignty and social contract theory. As the class proceeds, I'll explain everything. Voltaire, he speaks about the freedom of expression, right? And also, there was impact of American War of Independence on these people. We saw that how, in the last class we have discussed, how the 13 colonies of US, they fought against the British imperialist power, right? They said that no taxation without representation. And on 4th of July 1776, US got total independence, right? So now let's quickly expand the topics. First cause of French Revolution was that after the ending of feudalistic period, right, in France, we saw coming up of Bourbon Dynasty. Okay, that was from 1589 to 1793. Again, 1814 to 1830. And over here, the king enjoyed the absolute monarchy and he had unlimited powers. Now understand this. Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So this ultimately leads to over centralization of power, right? Now that things they were okay during the time of Louis XIV, but what happens when Louis XV and Louis XVI they come up, at that point of time they prove to be incompetent rulers because they themselves are engulfed in a lot of luxury and extravagance rather than focusing on the needs of the common man. Already the taxes they were collecting were used in the 7 years of war. Okay, now another thing I have already mentioned, that these French king, they held the authority that they are directly responsible only to God, right? They held this concept of divine right theory. So what happened along with this, during Louis XV's rule, France was already going through the financial crisis. You can write it down, due to 7 years of war, and financial crises were such that even bread was not commonly available. There were bread rights also, right? So it is said that by coming up of Louis XVI, almost the whole French kingdom had reached its nadir, because nadir means the lowest point. Because of the lackadaisical attitude, okay, they were showing no interest to work for the common man. Is it clear? Now what do we see? He and his wife, Marie, okay, this is Marie Antoinette, they believe in a lot of extravagant spending and they try to please the clergies and the nobles, and hardly were they in favor of any reform in the current politico-social conditions of France. So definitely, if the common man is so suppressed, someday he is going to revolt, right? So it's written here, they were ignorant of the hardship of the common people while the treasury was completely depleting. This was the first cause. Now, second thing, the French society was divided into 3 estates. The first estate, which were your Roman Catholic clergy, okay. The second estate, which were your noble and the aristocrats, they enjoyed the privileges, both of them, okay. And both of these classes, they are not paying any taxes. So it is the third estate, which is 97%, we'll see, 97% of the population, which is burdened with paying all the taxes, right? So let's discuss the first estate. This merely consists of 0.5% of the people of France, right? So further, there were some higher clergies, there were some lower clergies, right? Higher clergies were around 5,000 in number. They enjoyed more privileges. See, they are not paying taxes. They are so less in number. But how much land are they owning? Almost 1/5 of the land in France they are owning. They led a luxurious life and often detached from the common people. Even the lower clergy we see, they enjoy privileges, definitely. They come from a little poor background, poor social background, and they were pretty closer to the common man and they were involved in day-to-day religious and the community services. But the whole part is, if this is the whole empire and if I divide the land into 5 parts, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is 5th. So 1/5, hypothetically this is all equal, 1/5 of the whole land, imagine, is with only 0.5% of the people, population. So you see there is a demand supply gap over here, right? And when we will see the third estate, we'll see 97% of the population is having a merely very small chunk of land.